Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you the entire journey of buying a multifamily deal without using your own capital. You're going to raise the money from an investor. You're going to do a 60-40 split. You're going to take 40%. You'll give the investor 60%. And the entire purchase process, how to appraise it, how to do the joint venture, unanimous shareholders agreement template, and literally the entire journey, all for free on this video. So I hope to give you guys a lot of value here. Now, to start, let's assume that you're able to find a deal that hits the requirements to raise capital easy. Now, how do you do that is to ensure that you are able to get a 10% cash and cash return for your 60% investor. And I use my own cash flow analysis matrix. It is broken up very simply. On the right side, on the red area, that's where the total amount of raise that needs to be done. So the down payment, the lender fee, appraisal, lawyer cost, all the closing costs, the inspection, title insurance. I also take an acquisition fee for myself. So on this specific deal that I closed, that I bought, this is a new construction deal. It's 8 units. It's pretty expensive. It's 240 per unit, but it's in a really good location. So all I needed to raise was 190,000 for this deal. I raised it from one person, and I ensured that they got $24,000 return per year on their 190,000. So the math is basically you take this amount, the 24,800 divided by 190, and you'll get around a 12% cash and cash. So this deal hits the mark for a 10% cash and cash. Now, real quick, you are going to need to find quite a few deals to hit that 10% cash and cash. It is not easy. You are going to have to negotiate the price and get the price down, but that is real estate. You make money on the buy. You make sure that you buy the deal correctly. And this deal was actually appraised at 2.5 million, and I'll show you guys. So this is the first step of buying a deal, breaking down the numbers and making sure that your 60% investor can get at least a 10% cash and cash return. Now, I've done deals where it was only a 7% cash and cash return. It's a little harder to raise the cash, but it is doable. Now, let's say you found an investor and you got a commitment. It will essentially look like this. You guys are on email and you guys jump on the phone. And I'll break that down. If I back up a little bit here, I want to break down the commercial mortgage broker. So it's important to ask for a ballpark interest rate. Right now it's around 7.25% interest rate, and ask for the amortization, how much they can give you, if it's 25 years or if it's 30, and the DCR they need, the debt coverage ratio, and confirm how much down payment that they need, that they need for the deal to be funded, right? So you would essentially raise, it's typically around 20% down payment. So the ballpark interest rate, that way you guys can plug it into your matrix calculator. The amortization will automatically calculate the matrix, so it plugs in the actual cash flow you guys are going to get. So the higher the amortization year, the more cash flow you guys will get because it's longer to pay it off, right? If the amortization is shorter, then you'll have less cash flow, but you'll be faster to pay off the mortgage. The debt coverage ratio is a way for the banks to measure the riskiness of the building. How it works is if they need a 1.1 DCR, it means for every dollar you collect, 10 cents of that needs to go towards the mortgage. So in this case, 1.488 is the deal. Essentially 48 cents over every dollar is collected goes to the mortgage. So essentially we're able to get how much is that? 38 cents in profit. Okay. And then the down payment, of course, is how much for the equity. Now you have the cash flow analysis matrix correctly broken down. If you do my strategy and my system where you're able to get an abundance of investors coming into your pipeline, you're going to have a lot of people in your emails. And let's say hypothetically, you're able to get someone confirmed to do the deal. Now you're gonna need to have a lot of people responding to your email before you actually get an investor, right? You need to, like, it's just like anything in life. If in terms of baseball, you're gonna have to try to hit the ball many times to get a home run. So in this case, I was able to get this person to invest with me on this deal. So he joined my Facebook group, and he currently owns three plex lots, and he wants to discuss more projects with me. So I spoke to him on the phone, and he wants to do the deal. Now, in terms of tips on how to pitch the investor, maybe that's for another video, but this is about the actual journey of how to close the deal. So let's say this was a friend of yours and he wants to do the deal. He wants to give you 190,000. Next up, you're going to ask for his or her ID to draft the contract. Okay. So just because the person says, yes, let's do it, doesn't mean you say, okay, wire transfer me 190,000. That's not how it works. You and your investor are both going to be on the purchase contract together, so both of you guys are protected. So you're going to ask for their ID, and your ID and your investor's ID will be sent to the seller, either the seller or the real estate agent, and that agent will draft up the purchase contract. So contracts will look different from state to state, but this is what the contract looks like in my area. Now, there's a couple of dates here that I want to break down to you guys. Now, you might see the purchase price went up here. That's because we actually negotiated for the blinds and the the blinds and the I believe the appliances to be added back onto the contract. So I ended up paying a little bit more, but that's okay because the numbers still worked. So the first date you're going to see on your purchase contract is your closing date. Now, for the closing date, if you don't know what that is, that's your possession date. That's when you get the keys and it's officially yours, and you're going to start making payments to your mortgage. So that's the first date. Second date you look for is the earnest deposit money. The earnest deposit is the first amount of funds that your investor will have to put up. So there's a number of ways to do this. You're able to break it up in smaller payments, or you could just make one payment. In our case, we negotiated 15,000 for the deposit up front. So that's upfront means 3 to 5 business days. So within 3 to 5 business days, my investor put up 15,000 as a draft deposit, and then another 50,000 when we remove conditions. And that's where we get to the third date, which is the conditions. Now, conditions just means you're essentially buying this building, but I have conditions, right? I have a condition to financing, inspection, etc. And so in my case, it was financing. The condition financing is usually around 60 days, usually a month to 2 months and a half. It depends on the bank, but usually this is the amount of timeline that you want to buy yourself for the deal. The more time you're able to buy, the safer it is for the deal. But if you run out of time, you can always extend it with the seller. So it's not the end of the world, but the seller doesn't want to tie it up with you for too long because they will miss out on other offers, right? Because if they're tied up to you at 2 million here, someone could have came to the seller and said, hey, I'll pay 2.1 and a half or 2.1 million. That's an extra 25,000. sorry, 15,000 for the seller, but we're tied up together, so he can't accept the deal. So that's the downside um, to a longer condition date, but it works to your benefit. So those are the three dates that you guys will be setting up with. Again, the first, in chronological order, the first is the earnest deposit. Next would be the condition date, and then the closing date. Okay, now closing is usually another 30 days after the conditions are lifted. And reason why it takes that long is because it takes a while for the banks to advance the funds to the seller. Okay, so those are the three dates. Now, again, in this case, there's four dates because of the second deposit that we broke it up in two. So you could do that as well. Now, again, I am not a real estate agent. I'm not a lawyer. So these contracts will look different from state to state. My goal on this video is just to give you guys an understanding of what you can expect from your contracts, what you could expect from doing a deal. Because honestly, getting a deal at the numbers that will work, that's the upfront work. Once you're able to get a deal, you're pretty much good to go. Now you just have to raise the capital, which is the easy part. Which sounds crazy, but if you have a system where you get a ton of people coming into your pipeline, coming into your Facebook group, who know, like, and trust you, once you send out an email blast, you're able to gain a lot of trust and you're able to raise the capital very easily. So that's not too much of a problem. Contracts are also very straightforward. Okay, so again, once you get a verbal confirmation from your investor on the phone, you get their ID. Once you get their ID, within 3 to 5 business days, have your 60% partner draft the earnest deposit and have them send it directly to the broker's office or according to the broker's instructions. So when I say broker, I mean the real estate agent who has the deal. Now, if you don't have an agent for the deal, then you can just do the deal between you and the seller and you could write up a contract. But typically, it's really hard to find off market apartment building deals, right? And that's why I always preach to work with real estate agents, because these guys have spent the last 10, 20, 30 years of their life marketing apartment buildings for them to get these off market deals. So just follow the instructions of your real estate broker. If they say, "Hey, send the earnest deposit to our office," have it up as a draft. So tell your 60% partner the instructions of where to send it. Usually, it's on an email chain, and you could forward it to your investor, or you and your investor and your real estate broker can all be on one email. So everything's very transparent. Okay. So once they've sent over the deposit, what's going to happen is now the clock starts ticking. So once the deposit have been sent over, you're going to have to do all of this work. Okay. Especially if you're the 40% partner. You're gonna be responsible for getting the appraisal, opening the LLC with the appropriate share structure. You're gonna have to fill out all the necessary paperwork, the credit check, the network statement, property disclosure, etc. I'll teach you how to make this not so much of a workload. You're gonna have to call a lawyer to get them ready for closing. You're gonna shop around for accountants to get them ready for your corporate tax payments. You have to find the property manager, or you can keep the existing one that's already in the building. You're going to have to get an inspector ready and have your USA or your JV agreement signed. Okay, so there's a lot of work here, but I've got a couple pro tips for you guys. So, number one is always push your mortgage broker. I've had multiple deals drop because of my mortgage broker. So, lesson learned, I've lost millions of dollars because of mortgage broker not doing what he's supposed to do. So push your mortgage broker, make sure you're on them, send them texts, call them, make sure the paperwork is moving. Second, don't delay your paperwork. So once your investor put up the earnest deposit, get started on the paperwork, get started on working That way you don't delay your paperwork. Okay. Third is, again, follow up every day on your application. It's really easy to just forget about it and think that all you have to do is wait. You have to follow up. Follow up on your application. And then the fourth pro tip is try to be there for the appraisal inspection, or if you can't be there because the building is 10 hours away, call them and be on the phone with them during the appraisal. Okay, and I'll show you why. This is how you can get a really good appraisal value as long as you work with your appraiser. So let's break this down step by step. Number one, get an appraiser. So I'm going to show you guys one of my appraisals. Well, the appraisal on this deal. So how do you get an appraisal higher than what you bought it for? So if you see here, and I blurred out some of the important stuff or the sensitive stuff, but I got it appraised for $2.4 million, and remember my contract was at 2,085,000, right? So we got a pretty significant value lift off of this property just because why? I was there for the appraisal and I walked them through the deal. So uh, and a specific pro tip here is when you're there, or if you got them on the phone, you have to help them understand that this building has potential for higher cap rates, and the neighboring areas, the comparables in the areas, have good rents. So what you're gonna do is essentially appraisers are there to work with you. They want to appraise your building as best as they can. So you have to help them do that. And what you can do is start looking around your area and seeing the exact type of square footage, the exact year built for your building. If it's two bedrooms, look at two bedrooms, look at one bedrooms, look at the rent, how much they're bringing in for the rent. So if your building is under rented versus another one, you could then use that as argument to say, hey, this building could be worth more because of what the rents are in the neighboring areas. Okay. Um, Thus, you can then push the cap rate because um, the cap rate is determined by each market. So if you don't know how cap rate works, basically they work in conjunction with what sellers or what buyers are willing to pay in that market. Okay, so it varies from market to market, but you're able to push the cap rate for your building as long as you're able to find extra value by looking at your other competitors in the area. Okay, so for example, for mine, I was able to nudge my appraiser and say, "Hey, my bedroom, my upstairs, my three beds upstairs. I've seen buildings in my area. They're renting for 2,500 plus utilities. Um, for mine, we were thinking 2,200, but I was like, hey, I think we could push this to 2,350, right? If people are renting it for higher, I'm sure I could rent it for 2,350, and so that's how we're able to push it. We also added income from the garages. So I have a 4-car garage, $100 per month times 12 times 4, so that adds to the value as well. So remember, the value of your building comes from the income, the net operating income. So making sure your expenses are low and your income is high. And it's determined by the cap rate. You divide that NOI by the cap rate of the area. So again, you're able to nudge the cap rate in different directions as long as you're able to provide proof. Now, if none of that made sense, I'm sorry, but essentially you're able to kind of nudge the appraiser ethically to ensure that if you are able to find comparables in the area, it can work. Okay, so that's how I was able to do that. Now, let's talk about opening the LLC with appropriate share structure. Now, I can't show you my structures, it's too much sensitive stuff, but what you can do is you can go to LegalZoom, and there's $250 to open up a standard and a $300 one for premium. Now, I'm not affiliated with them, but I use a similar one where I just opened it online, super quick, super easy, and sends out e-signatures for your investor. That way they can just sign it really, really easy. Making sure your investor has 60% shares and you have 40%. Okay, so I think that's pretty straightforward. Going back to all this now, filling out the necessary paperwork. This could be for another video, but filling these out should be very straightforward. You're going to get instructions from your mortgage broker. They're going to have some sheets and documents for you to fill out for you and your partner. So you guys just fill it out, and they might want some documents such as the LLC that you opened up. They might want to see your org structure, the organizational structure of how you split it up 60/40. They might want net worth statements and credit checks. So just make sure that your investor hits the net worth criteria or the credit score needed. That way you could ride their credit score or their net worth for you to be qualified for the deal. And of course, talk to your mortgage broker beforehand, right over here. Make sure you talk to them first and find out what credit score that you need to get the deal done, okay? Or net worth. So once that's done, get a lawyer. Of course, that's straightforward. Get an accountant. You can Google these guys or ask around or ask from your real estate agent that brought you this deal so they could recommend to you some lawyers or some accountants. The property manager, keep the same one. That's the best case scenario. If they already have one, just keep it. Get an inspector ready. Again, you could ask your real estate agent, or you could just Google one. The USA or the JV agreement. So I'm actually going to take it one step further and show you my actual USA agreement. USA means unanimous shareholders agreement. It will stipulate what will happen if you or your partner dies, if you or your partner gets a divorce, what happens if you guys don't, if you, the 40% partner, don't fulfill your duties, meaning you just stop managing the property, you stop talking to the property manager, and you just kind of move to Italy and retire. It will stipulate everything. So your partner is going to look for this, of course, right? They're going to want to see an agreement. JV just means joint venture. So you could have a USA and a JV, or you could just combine both. In my case, I just combine both and I use my USA as my JV. And I'll show you guys exactly how I do that. So here is my USA template. I opened it up for you. So I blocked out a lot of stuff. Now this is 39 pages. Again, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. Don't copy this word for word because it might differ, but it gives you guys a good idea of where to begin and how it works, right? So this is just a guide. I'm just trying to provide value, but don't copy this, right? So this is the unanimous shareholders agreement. There's a bunch of stuff here. I don't know. My lawyer made it. I'll show you guys some of the important stuff, the buy and sell provisions, stuff like that. Here in Schedule C, you'll have your investor's name here. So let's say your investor's name is John. So you're going to say John will have final say in all matters, but not limited to rent prices, upgrades to building to which tenants to lease to, contractor bids and approval. So what this basically means is your investor is going to love this because they're 60% owner, they will have final say in the rent prices, upgrades to building, and which tenants to lease to, and then contractor bids and approvals. Now, of course, you're going to have some say too as the 40%, within reason, right? If your partner wants an insane price on the rent, you guys are not going to be full, and you're gonna struggle to rent it out. So of course, this is you got to make sure your investor is not, crazy, um, and is reasonable. And then any quoted work over $500 would be subject to John's approval. Okay, so this means if there is maintenance work that needs to be done over $500, it will need to go through your partner's approval, which is fine, right? It will have to go through your approval too, because the property manager that you'll hire, you'll make sure that they tell you if there's something big that needs to be renovated. Okay, so this is where your name and your investor's name and then your numbered LLC would be in. Then in this part, this is where the important part is. In 3.2, issued capital. So I put up none of my own money. All of the money comes from my investor. So if my investor's name is John, so John to provide all the required funds to close the property. Okay. Any cash call beyond closing the date will be split 60-40. Okay. 60% being John, 40% being me. So what does this mean? So any cash call, meaning any investment beyond the closing date, after you guys buy the property, that's where you guys will actually split it 60-40. So let's say John put up all the money, 200,000. He closed the deal. Great, you guys are cash flowing. Let's say on month 5, a dishwasher breaks, and you guys have to buy a new dishwasher. So that cost will be split 60-40. Okay, so you are going to have to spend 40% of the new dishwasher. Okay, so what's nice is you're not spending the entire 100%. You're only paying 40% because you have a partner in the deal, right? So it mitigates your risk. Um, and so over here, at the event of a refinance or sale, John to get priority payment up to total initial investment amount made prior to closing. Then 60-40 split any proceeds after accordingly. So what does this mean? So if John put up 200K, let's say you bought the deal for 2 million and you guys now sold it for 2.5. What happens is that 500,000 profit, off that 500, 200 needs to go back to John first. He gets priority payment, so he at least breaks even on his investment with you, right? So the remaining amount, the 300K, that's where you guys then split the 60-40 accordingly. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Of course, your investor has to break even first before you guys split the profits if you guys sell. Now, upon John's death, John's wife, her name will have shares automatically transferred to her name. So this just shows that, it is a legacy play for your investor. If they don't have a wife, then of course you don't have to put this in there. But it just shows that, if they do die, then the shares will automatically go to their wife. Okay, so this is where the subscriber class or the series number would be. So if it's class A shares or class B or class C, this is where you are going to stipulate that. And that's pretty much it. All these other stuffs are very just standard. I just wanted to show you guys those few things. There is a shotgun clause here, and I'll explain what a shotgun clause is, and what happens if if I break my agreement as well. So here, Section 12 default. So default means if a shareholder willingly or intentionally breaches any term of the contract which causes prejudice to the rights. So essentially, if you break the rules here, this is what will happen. So, and I give myself 15 days to remedy the default, right? But essentially, if nothing happens, then this is what happens. So there's a shotgun clause that allows your investor to buy you out less 15%, right? Less 15% of the fair market values. So meaning I don't deserve the entire value of my shares because I broke my trust, right? And so that then my share is then taken 15% off of its value. So let's say my share was worth 1.3 million. Now it's worth 15% less, and my investor can buy me out, right? So that's what will happen, and these are the types of terms that I put in just to make it safe for my investor and show that I'm actually, I'm serious. And then over here is the shareholders' duties and responsibilities. So this would be your investor. So John's role is a minority partner. And oh, sorry, this would be my role, right? My role is as a minority partner. So Ryan's role as a minority partner and property manager of the building, right, will to the best of his ability minimize cost at the property and all actions of managing the property, right? Whether that's renting or conducting maintenance, etc. Now, this is where your partner is John. So, John's role is the general partner and majority shareholder. He will make himself available for decisions relating to the property and endeavor to maximize the value of the property, right? So, that just shows our roles. Very, very easy to understand. I essentially manage the property, and my partner, he's the general partner, and he'll just make himself available, right? He put up the money, um, so there you go. That's how it works. Now, the reason why we're able to buy so many properties is because I'm not using my own cash. If I use my own cash, I'd be stuck doing one deal a year, if that, because properties are expensive. But if you know how to make JV agreements and USA agreements like this and gain the trust of investors, you're going to be able to be a cash raising machine. You'll be able to raise money like it's no one's business. You're going to be able to buy and buy and buy and buy, right? Now, of course, there is lots of other strategies like sub 2 and seller financing, which I've used as well, but I love raising cash because it allows me to just buy the deal through the banks traditionally and not need to do any creative financing. Of course, creative financing is great, um, but again, this is just this is what I do, and this is what I know, mostly. So, with that being said, I think that's everything that I want to share, guys. At the last page here, there is the shotgun clause. So again, shotgun clause just allows you to purchase the shares from other shareholders. Now, you will have the right of first refusal, meaning um, you have to let each other know first if you guys want to buy each other out, instead of someone else buying you out, right? So, yeah, that's essentially it. So, I shared a lot in this video. Hopefully, it wasn't too confusing. I just wanted to show you guys the roadmap of how to buy a multifamily deal with an investor, 60-40 split, and showing you guys a USA template. So, if you guys found this helpful, please share this with a friend so they understand what it takes to buy a deal. Maybe you guys can work on it together. Give this a thumbs up if you actually liked it, and leave a comment on what else I should do videos on. Take care.